So May is just about done. We're moving into June. We're coming closer to E3, and it looks like at this point, the information that we have about the Zelda 35th anniversary and the lack of information we have about Breath of the Wild 2, that's probably everything we're gonna get until E3. But I do think that this E3 is going to be an amazing time to be a Zelda fan. I think we're gonna get a lot of information about other Zelda titles, and I think we're gonna get a lot of information about Breath of the Wild 2. What I'm really hoping for is that we start getting some idea of what this game is going to be. We know a few things about it, very small details, but I'm really hopeful that E3 is where they start to open up and tell us what we can expect from this game. And that's what I want to talk about in this video today. I want to go over 12 things that I would love to see in Breath of the Wild 2. What's up, guys? Welcome back, or welcome in for the first time. If you are new here, do me a favor. Down in the description, I have a link to our second channel, which you can find our podcast on. We just started this, we're 2 episodes in, so if podcasts are your thing, check it out. We do film them live every Friday night at 9:30 Eastern time on this channel, but they do live over there afterwards. There's all kinds of other content on that channel coming very soon, so check that out, subscribe if you want to. Enough self-promotion, on with the video. So the first thing I hope we see in Breath of the Wild 2, I think is a pretty universal thing. I don't think I'm the only one who wants to see this. Obviously, I've heard lots of other people talk about it. Dungeons. I think we do have to go back to at least a somewhat traditional Zelda dungeon. Now, the big idea I had that I thought would be really nice was maybe 8 to 10 versions of something like we saw on the inside of Hyrule Castle from the original Breath of the Wild. Now, the Divine Beasts and the shrines, they were fine, but they were a little bit repetitive. But if you took some of the puzzles from the shrines and the Divine Beasts and put those inside of a format like we got with Hyrule Castle and maybe turn those into caves or, you know, lots of other things, I think those would probably end up being some of the best dungeons we've ever seen in Zelda. It seems like a tall task and a lot to ask, but if you consider the fact that we already have pretty much the foundation laid for the games, and really for that type of dungeon in Hyrule Castle, and we already have all of the framework for the puzzle mechanics and everything already done, I don't really think that's a whole lot to ask. I think it's totally doable. So real traditional dungeons is probably one of the biggest things I really would love to see in the game. Another one has to be music. Now, I do like what they did with Breath of the Wild. They went a completely different direction and kind of went a more like an ambient music type of way. There's some points like Hyrule Castle, again, has its own theme, which is really nice, but I really would love to see a return back to some of that really epic music that we've had in past Zelda games, like Ocarina of Time. That moment when you leave the forest for the first time out into Hyrule Field and you hear that music, that is such an iconic moment, and I just want more of those in this Hyrule. I want more pieces of this story that are going to be more memorable and more spectacular, I guess, just because of the music. I think as far as video games go and music, Zelda is easily one of the series that has always just had a soundtrack that's been a step above, really. You look at games like I said, Ocarina of Time. Wind Waker had an amazing soundtrack. Twilight Princess, my favorite game ever. Awesome soundtrack. Breath of the Wild has a good soundtrack, but it's just not quite as epic as I would hope to see in a Zelda game. It's got its moments, don't get me wrong. I do like what they did with it. And Hyrule Castle does have its own theme that's pretty epic, but I just need a little bit more. I need more variety of music, and I just need more epic. Okay, next one on the list, traditional items. And these cannot be breakable. We're gonna talk about the breakable weapons later on in the video, but for now, I would like to see some items in the game like we used to get in other games that are not breakable. I'm talking about things like iron boots. I'm talking about things like hook shots. I want these items to play more of a role in the gameplay, letting you get to new areas, which we'll also talk about later in the video. But I think bringing something like that back is going to open up brand new gameplay possibilities while really keeping what we have in Breath of the Wild intact. Like I said, I'm not saying take away all breakable weapons. I really did start out on that train, but I understand it, they do need to break, but I think we should have some items that we use a lot throughout the game that don't break. Swords can break, all that stuff can break. All the things that break now can break. I would just like a different set of items that we can count on being there for certain use cases. Now, as far as the breakable weapons, what I would really love to see them do, and they kind of already have it with the food system, is have some type of crafting just so you can fix or maybe even upgrade the weapons that you have. Let's say you're out and you have a sword that you find, you're using it, it breaks. It would be really nice to not only be able to repair that sword, but eventually repair it and make it even stronger. Like maybe being able to add certain materials with the sword while crafting to make it an electric sword or fire sword or ice sword like we've seen in the other games. Just being able to actually make those and then later on upgrade them to be even stronger. Now, a decent crafting system that we can look at and kind of take little bits from that I think would apply to Zelda is honestly Animal Crossing. Now, you could craft all kinds of stuff in Animal Crossing, but you can't just walk up to the workbench and craft whatever you want. You have to get the recipes. So I think that would be a really fun thing to add in the game. Going and finding, I don't think they call them recipes, but you could find, maybe a parts list or just some type of blueprint on how to make these weapons and then how to upgrade them later. I think something like that would be a lot better of a reward, maybe for some of the side quests. It's definitely a lot better than what we get now. I mean, some of these things we get like 50 rupees. I mean, big whoop. And that really does bring me right into the next one, which is the side quests. I think the side quests could be improved dramatically in this game, and not really the actual side quests themselves, because a lot of those were good. I would like to see some of them maybe consolidated into bigger side quests that give you bigger things. But I think the main problem, as I said just a minute ago, is what you get for doing the side quests. It's not really worth it to take the time to do all these side quests when all you get is 50 rupees or Korok poop. It's just not really worth it to track all this stuff down and do all these things unless you're getting something that's actually going to help you in the game. So side quests I think are pretty good. They just need slight improvements, and that's probably what I'd like to see. Just better prizes for your side quests. Now, another thing I think is probably gonna be one of those universal things that everybody wants to see in this game. I've heard lots of people talk about it, especially since we are going to be exploring the same general Hyrule. We need to see some new areas. Obviously from the trailer, it looks like we are gonna be seeing some underground stuff, I'd say that's a safe bet at this point. And that would be a great place to find, new dungeons, new areas to explore. But I would also like to see what's underneath the water, even just in the Hyrule that we have now. There are huge areas, including Lake Hylia, that we could explore, and I mean, who knows what's down there? Lake Bed Temple, that could be under there. There's all kinds of different things we can find like that, but I would also like to see maybe Hyrule expanded out just a little bit. Like maybe there are other places, maybe other islands. We did get to see some smaller islands in the original Breath of the Wild. Maybe we can go to other islands that have full villages on them. Maybe they're not even a part of Hyrule. Maybe it's part of a side quest to go find something to maybe unlock another dungeon in Hyrule. Who knows? But I mean, if you look at the map here, we have water on the east and the south of Hyrule there. So there's lots of potential that we could find something beyond what the map shows us there. And I'd love to see that. I would absolutely love to be able to explore different towns, just unlock different things in a different part to bring back to our main Hyrule to unlock different things there. Now, I do have a video talking about dungeons and all that stuff and what I think we could possibly see, and I'll link that here in case you guys want to check that out. But I think these new areas are probably where we're going to find, like I said, these dungeons. I think that's really the only way they could do this, is give us new areas that have been locked away that were maybe in plain sight, and once we open them, there's the entrance to a dungeon. But like I said, full video on that I just linked here, and that'll be at the end if you want to check that out after this one. But to kind of go off of that with finding new places and seeing new things, that kind of brings me to the next one I want to talk about, and I would like a real-time story this time. Now, the memories were fine. I thought they were pretty good. It fit the context of the game we were playing. But I think in Breath of the Wild 2, I would much rather see a real-time story play out and be able to experience it with the characters on screen as they're experiencing it. I would rather not have to search for more memories this time. I'd rather just go ahead and make my own. But again, that kind of ties into that dungeon location video I did, which linked at the end. So if you want to hear more about that, it'll be there. Okay, now this is a small one that I'd really like to see, and it's probably going to be something not a lot of people really care about all that much, but I would like to see a full photo mode in this game. Now, you can take photos in this game. It's actually part of the Sheikah Slate. It's got a camera in it, so you can take all kinds of photos in this game. The problem is, you can't actually do anything with them after you take them. You can go look at them in the game, but you can't save them to the camera roll. You can't do any type of editing to them. And as beautiful as Hyrule is, and as beautiful as some of these areas are, especially when it's sunset or early morning, it would be really nice to be able to take some photos of this land and do something with them. So I'm not gonna harp on this one a whole bunch, but I really would love to see a photo mode, a full photo mode in Breath of the Wild 2. I don't think it would take that much time. Really, all you would have to add is a few little things, an editor, and the ability to take them out of the game and into the camera roll. Not too much to ask. I think it'd be very simple, but something I'd definitely like to see. Okay, this next one is a very big one for me because I was not a big fan of the Blight Ganons in the Divine Beasts. When I got to the first one, I was really excited. I was like, wow, that was really cool. But then when you get to the second one and realize that they're all kind of the same, it starts to get old after a while. So I think better boss design in these dungeons that we hopefully get is a must in this game. We need to go back to the types of bosses that have to be taken down by a special item. You need, like I said, the special items that we would get. You would need one of those probably gotten in the dungeon that you're in to defeat it. The problem with the Blight Ganons was if you had enough arrows, even if they did have a little trick or something that you had to try to figure out, you really didn't even need to mess with it, because if you, like I said, if you had enough arrows, you could just keep shooting them until they were dead. I think that needs to be fixed in Breath of the Wild 2. We need smarter bosses. We need those puzzle elements brought back to the bosses in Zelda. That was a very, very big part of why I like the game so much, is trying to figure out how to take down the boss. I think we completely lost that in Breath of the Wild, so I would like to see that return in Breath of the Wild 2. As for the rest of the enemies, I think they did a pretty good job with them. The overworld bosses like the Lionels and things like that, I thought they were really good. The only thing about those that I would like to see in Breath of the Wild 2 is more variety. There are a ton of other enemies in other Zelda games that they could bring into this, and I think they will. I think a lot of the reason that we kind of saw a limited number of enemies, limited enemy types anyway, is because with all the delays and stuff and all the work that they had to do with the physics engine, trying to get all that ready, I think they probably just ran out of time when it comes to adding more and more and more into this game. Breath of the Wild 2 is a perfect opportunity to start adding more different types of enemies into this game to give you a little bit more variety when you're out there, you know, exploring around. And maybe in a spot that you found a Lionel, you'll find something even bigger next time. Or maybe in a cave, you stumble into a room and you end up finding a bunch of Redeads. All that would be great. I'd love to see more enemy types, but as far as what they did with the enemies, making them kind of mini bosses all around the world, I thought that was great. I'd love to see more of that. Now, the next one. I think the combat in Breath of the Wild is pretty good. I really like the flurry rush. I like the bullet time when you're in the air and you shoot your bow, you know, things slow down. I think that's great. I think for the most part, the combat's pretty good, but I would love to see upgraded combat as you go through the game. A great example of something like this would be what they did in Twilight Princess. Now, between every dungeon, you'd come across another wolf, and then that wolf would tell you eventually to meet him somewhere else. Once you did, you'd be taken into this area, and you would go train with this very large skull man, who people now say is actually the hero from Ocarina of Time. That's a whole nother video, we're not getting into that. But essentially, you go train with him, and he teaches you different combinations and moves. So as you go through the game, your skill sets, you get more and more different variety of moves. You do like rolls to get around the back of an enemy and slice them up. I can't remember what a lot of them are called, but they are really cool and they add a whole nother level to the combat. And when it comes to the enemies that you're facing, like maybe one has a shield. I'm pretty sure one of the moves was called Shield Break, where you would bump the shield, roll around, and then slice up. I can't remember exactly what they were, but they were really awesome. And the fact that you got a new one every single time that you went and trained with the wolf just means you got something new to try out as you went through every single dungeon and through the overworld. It really did keep the combat very, very interesting in that game, and I think something like that would fit very well in Breath of the Wild 2. Now, obviously, they'd probably implement that in a different way. Maybe you'd go to a dojo or something like that in Kakariko Village. I don't really know. I'm sure there's several ways they could implement something like that, but I really do think it would work very well. The last one I want to touch on here is I need a plot twist. I need a very big plot twist in this game. And the reason I say this now, honestly, and some people are gonna be totally against this, the reason I wanna see a big plot twist is because of what we saw in Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity. Now, whether this is canon, whether this is not canon, I don't care. This is not the video for that. And without spoiling anything for those of you who have not played that game, that plot twist, what happens in that game when that those certain people show up at that certain time, completely blew my mind. I did not see that coming. I would say that's probably the biggest surprise in any Zelda game ever. Whether it's canon or not, I don't care. It was awesome. And it doesn't have to be something like that, but I would like to see just something that's going to surprise us in this game. Something other than wake up Ganon. Ganon gets mad. Castle goes in the sky. Go up to the castle. Fight Ganon. Everything's fine. We need more. We need more. And a plot twist like what we saw in Age of Calamity would be amazing in my opinion. I think something like that is what is going to make this game go down as one of the best Zelda games ever. But I want to know, what do you want to see in Breath of the Wild 2? If there was one thing you got to pick that would definitely be in Breath of the Wild 2, what would it be? Leave that in the comments below. Let me know, guys. But that is gonna do it for this one, guys. As always, thank you so much for watching this video. Please leave a like. Make sure you are subscribed. We'll see you in the next one.